Hey, what's up guys, it's ElasticSpyder here, and in today's video we have a community replay. In this community replay we're going to be featuring bwray in his tier 10 Soviet destroyer, Russian destroyer I guess, also works the Khabarovsk. He's playing with his buddy Yamato and his Yamato, and he goes by his name of Haze Gray under ... I'm assuming he's a he, so don't say in the comments I assumed his gender, because I did. But either way, I do apologize for starting this replay a bit late, and I also want to apologize in advance for any frustrations I guess I have, or lack of speaking ability. This is the third time I'm recording this replay. The first time I thought I was recording, but I ended up not recording. Second time I was recording, I got blue screen of death midway through, so obviously I couldn't save anything. And hopefully this replay, knock on wood, I don't have any wood around, okay, knock on wood that I don't, screw anything up, or, my computer just doesn't blow up within itself. But with that being said, if you do want to send us our community replay, send it to BIAworldofwarships at gmail.com. And please include the replay itself, obviously, and then some post-battle results. That helps us kind of sort through the replays a little bit faster. What also helps sorting through the replays a lot faster is if you put some sort of description in the video, the email's title. That helps us out a lot. Of course, we'll still check out your replay regardless, but in terms of sorting, that does help quite a bit. So, and actually, something to add to that. Hopefully, some of you will like this, I guess. bwray actually did send in a good meme of his with his video, so his replay rather. So if you do feel like being a little saucy and you think we would enjoy the meme, it can be, I guess, any meme related thing. Warship memes are still the best though, right? So if you do want to send in your memes, please go ahead and do that with your replay. So, and one more thing before we get into this replay. Don't worry, it's a long replay, so as you can probably tell by the video length. But one last thing, if you do want to also be featured on the channel in a little bit of a different way, send us some of your big hits. Now, as some of you who have been around for a while may or may not know, Sneaky does like to do a big hits montage every now and again. And in order to do a big hits montage, well, you need some big hits. And well, since Sneaky's computer did take a little bit of a kaput, like mine did last night when I was recording this, he doesn't have any big hits whatsoever left. So if you do have some big hits laying around, and again, they have to be from this patch, I believe 0.7.3, I want to say, you guys know this current patch, please send them in, and please give us a timestamp as well on where the big hit occurred. That helps Sneaky out a lot. So please do that, and if you'd like to be featured, I'm sure Sneaky will be more than happy to put your name in the video's description, thanking you for your contribution. But of course, please do send us some of those, as well as your replays. So the Khabarovsk, it's a tier 10 Russian/Soviet destroyer. Now, most people consider it a cruiser, and rightly so. It does have some pretty nasty cruiser aspects, like great DPM, and the DPM on this ship is absolutely absurd, especially when you run things like reload mod. And as we see here, that is going to be what bwray is doing. And as long as you can stay at about 12.5 kilometers, maximizing your DPM, just continuously shooting, you are one of the best tier for tier gunboat destroyers in the game. Actually, I would probably go as far as saying the best. I mean, this is why the Khabarovsk is known for its just utter annoyance at tier 10. I mean, what is this Kerfurst going to do? He's going to turn his big 420mm guns, presumably, just turn them towards me, or towards bwray rather, and by the time he turns those guns, bwray is going to be out of town. He's going to be going 40 knots easily while turning. I mean, good luck hitting that. Even a good player like myself, Sneaky or Puddin, or even bwray, they're not going to be hitting that consistently. At least not consistently enough to take out 22.5k plus, you know, an extra 7k with heals. So this is just, there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to have a lot of cruisers focusing you and a lot of battleships focusing you at the same time. And honestly, it is just too much to go after a Khabarovsk sitting at 12.5 kilometers. And this is just what the Khabarovsk does. It just damage farms like a madman. Honestly, it's just, you can't do anything against this guy, against the Khabarovsk. But in a Khabarovsk, you can do a lot of things to a lot of different ships, like this battleship, this poor Kurfürst. He's going to get set on fire once. Yep, there we go. But I'm going to put it out, and by the time he's done, you know, turning out, he's going to maybe be happy with, you know, with his result, killing looked like 2 ships already. Yeah, 2 ships. You know, he's like, okay, you know, I can just turn out, pop my heal, and just live for another day and take out this Kurfürst and this Yamato. But the Khabarovsk is going to say no, because we are going to start setting some fires, because we've got great DPM. Even though we don't have the highest fire chance in the world, we have that great DPM, and there's our first fire. Some more salvo, another salvo out. Looks like we're gonna hit the second part of the, or first part of the superstructure for another fire. And well, now we're aiming for the bow, and let's see how RNG treats us. Granted, this is pretty good RNG, and a third fire to finish her off. And granted, that was great RNG, and a lot of times you won't get that. A lot of times you won't even get that first fire. But when you do, it seems like it just keeps coming. And well, we're gonna be burning down this Kurfürst, and not too bad. Within 9 minutes of gameplay, 8.5, we get our Witherer. Probably within the first 6 minutes since shooting our guns, which is quite good. But we're gonna be killing the Kurfürst, getting the Arsonist as well with that, and now we are going to be trying to support this cap. So here, one thing I want to mention. So right now, we've got a good broadside on this Montana. We could probably be shooting at the cab, but he is kind of running away, so whatever. We're shooting at this Montana, we get a fire. At this point, we should be shooting AP. AP for sure, AP all day. Now, we see that the Montana is going to be angling. So what do? We've got 2 options. We can just sit here, back up, and just HE spam him. And get 1200 damage, maybe a second fire. Looks like he's running fire prevention, somewhat competent player. You know, we can do this. Or what we could do is use our speed, use our mobility, flank around, and actually get to a position like right here. If you look on the minimap, that D2, D3 area, where we've got full broadside on this Montana, where we can just pelt AP into his side very consistently. As soon as the fire goes out, then you can switch back to HE. But you've got that opportunity to switch back and forth between AP and HE. So, you know, that is just something to think about. Do you want to just continuously use your DPM, or do you want to gain a positional advantage and then utilize your DPM there? So it's kind of a choice up to you. Sometimes players like to just have the consistent DPM. Other times players like to do the opposite and gain the positional advantage. It is all, you know, up to the player itself. At this point, I would actually start shooting a cab, a little bit here, a little bit there, just because he's at 11 kilometers. It's not terribly difficult to hit a cab at 11 kilometers with another cab, but we're gonna continuously shoot this Montana. He's sitting bow on for some reason, and oh boy, this could be bad. RNG hooked us up here, so far pretty good RNG in this game. But of course, one thing about the Khabarovsk that is quite nasty is from about the 3rd gun turret all the way up to the 1st gun turret. This is all 50mm plate armor. Of course, you know, right above the upper belt armor, it's going to be like 19mm, but that main belt armor all the way down, it's a 50mm plate on either side. So what that means is that if destroyed, and we'll see this with this Benson that just gets spotted here, if a battleship is shooting at us and we're angled about this degree, and they hit our main belt armor, then they're actually going to ricochet, because that's part of a game mechanic thing, that if the shells are at a certain angle and that angle is too small relative to the flatness of the armor, then the shell doesn't matter what caliber the shell is, unless it's actually able to overmatch that belt armor, or that armor, not the nominal armor thickness. It will actually ricochet. So a good kind of example of, and I actually like what we're doing here, chasing down this Benson who decides to smoke up and try and run away from a cab. But a good example is Yamato. Yamato can overmatch, I believe, any ship in the game. At least in terms of cruisers, it can. And that is because the nominal thickness of any cruiser's armor, tier 10, is not thicker than the required amount for the amount of shells to bounce. Now, the thing is, we've got a 50mm plate, and we only have, even in the Yamato, we have 460mm guns. 18.1 inches, whatever the translation is. That actually cannot overmatch the belt armor if you are aiming at extreme angles. So with that said, we're okay. We can actually bounce Yamato shells. I wouldn't say consistently, but it is a feature, I guess. So that is something that is quite ridiculous, and we kind of saw that there at the end. That poor Benson. I mean, he's trying to shoot if he tries to shoot HE and he hits this 50mm armor plate, he's not going to pen because he doesn't have enough HE penetration. Now, granted, if he shoots a superstructure, then yeah, he'll pen. But of course, when almost half your ship is covered in 50mm of armored plates, then it can get quite hard to actually do consistent damage to the Khabarovsk, even in these close quarter combats where you would think that the U.S. destroyers would have some sort of advantage. But that is a lot of times misleading. So, with that being said, that was a very nice play. We went and charged down a Benson. We knew that he couldn't run away from us. That is one thing that the Khabarovsk has that other destroyers don't. A lot of other destroyers have great concealment and great torpedoes. The Khabarovsk does not have good torpedoes at all, and it doesn't have very good concealment at all either. But it does have great speed and great gunpowder, and a lot of times that does trump your typical destroyer that utilizes smoke and stealth for its survivability and, I guess, form of damage. But the Khabarovsk is completely thrown out the window, especially with a heal. Like with this heal, your survivability goes up immensely. You can just bomb it around the battlefield and don't have to worry about a darn thing. And if you take some damage, well, you just pop your heal. You can take probably around 30k total damage, which is just insane for a destroyer. Now here I also want to point out something. So we noticed that there was a Yugumo in B cap, and we noticed that he got off B cap because he saw us, he was spotting us, and he buggered off, and he got off the cap because he didn't want to get chased down. We're going to continuously chase him down because we know, well, first set of torpedoes came from that azimuth, second set came from that azimuth, and so we know he went down the channel. Another thing I want to point out, he doesn't have smoke. You saw 8 torpedoes there and then 8 torpedoes there. That means that he has torpedo reload booster, which means he doesn't have smoke. So little things like this, in the heat of battle, sometimes you can miss them, but if you can analyze situations like this and realize that some ships don't have certain consumables, then you can counter them quite hard. And in this case, well, like let's say if this Yugumo had smoke and we I guess we would assume that he could go either left or right. It doesn't matter. But since he doesn't have smoke, and we realize that he doesn't have smoke because of the torpedo reload booster, well, we can continuously chase him down. We don't have to really worry about the torpedoes all that much. Granted, they're probably reloaded now, and there they are. You know, we could just chase him down with confidence. You know that his consumable is down, and you know he doesn't have any more torpedoes. He just has to shoot, and well, he's at 8.6k. Didn't do any damage. We did 3520. Second salvo 4390. Did 600, and he's dead. So we did 8k damage in the matter of maybe 10 seconds, and he did 500 damage. It's because all the shells hit that 50mm armor belt. So, in close quarter battles, you would think that a lot of other destroyers would be better suited for tanking and you know, overall just destroying the other gunboat. But with the Khabarovsk, that mindset and that those tactics do not work, because as you just saw right there, 8k, 8.5k versus 600 damage. Well, I mean, it speaks for itself. But we're going to speed up the replay here a little bit, because we do end up finding the Kerr first at D, and then we actually do end up killing him. So, really briefly, I just want to talk about why I chose this replay. I normally don't do this, but I figured, because some of you might be like, oh, well, why are you featuring damage farming replays and whatnot? But the reason I featured this replay is because I thought I could talk a little bit about the Khabarovsk, and it's been a while since we featured a cab replay. But also, I also wanted to mention that, you know, the cab is intrinsically, I guess you could say, a more selfish ship. And in general, that is kind of what you get with more selfish ships, is you do end up finding yourself in these kind of longer range engagement positions. Of course, that is what Soviet ships are mainly good at, but you know, how selfish is it for bwray to be, you know, just shooting at long range and not really tanking for the team? But at the same time, you have to think, you know, granted, he didn't do a lot for the team, but he also did 200, and he will end up doing 220,000 damage, and end up getting 5 kills. So again, I'm not exactly sure where that argument came from, saying that if you do a lot of damage and do damage farm, you don't necessarily help the team. I think in this replay, he definitely did help the team, and a win is a win in my book. So looking at the post-battle results, we ended up with 222,000 points of damage, over 500 shell heads, Arsonist, Confederate, Kraken, Witherer, and High Caliber, as well as 5 ships killed. So a very nice replay, bit slow, but I think that's your typical cab replay, and I kind of wanted to point that out as well here at the end. Team score-wise, 27-26. Now, this is something I also want to point out. There is no carrier in the game, which doesn't, you know, help our base XP all that much. We could have shut down maybe a couple planes. If there's a tier 8 carrier, maybe, you know, 4 or 5. But the other thing, we didn't get any base captures. And this is why I like playing the Khabarovsk, specifically to boost my base XP, average base XP per battle. You know, granted, 226 damage, K damage isn't, you know, very common. But even if you do maybe 120, which isn't too difficult in a cab, you know, you're still going to get around 2k base XP, especially if you do a lot of damage to destroyers. But had you gotten even 2 or 3 planes shot down, you would have been almost 2,900 base XP. And then if you would have gotten even one, you know, solo base cap, you would have been easily over 3,100 base XP. Easily over 3,100 base XP. So that is why the cab is a great ship to farm base XP with. Also, you do a lot of good damage to destroyers, which of course XP is calculated by the percentage of HP taken from a ship. So of course battleships, you won't get as much HP, but when you, for example, do 17.5k to a Benson, and then, you know, half of the HP of a Yagumo, well, you've effectively killed 1.5 ships, and then on top of that you do one full battleship and 2/3 of another. Well, that quickly adds up as to why you got such high basic speed. Speaking of which, we did about 100,000 main battery shell hits only with HE. I would like to see some more AP usage because the AP on the ship is great, especially against battleships and even cruisers too. But we did get a double witherer, which you don't see every day. We ended up going the whole 20 minutes